Thank you for joining me. I'm Alex, and I would like to talk to you about one of my favorite companies and kind of explain why I bought the stock when I did and what I expect to happen to the stock over the next few years. So, Tesla makes cars and also stuff. Right now, stuff is mostly solar panels and things like that, but they also have autopilot, which could be a standalone company if they wanted it to be, but obviously they like to keep things in-house. They have many other things as well, including making robots for factories. So they bought a company that makes factory robots to integrate into their factories rather than just buying robots for some reason. So current price is $245, which is down 1% while the market was up as a whole. PE is negative 60, so they're losing like $4 a share, and their share price is $245. You can do the math there. People don't like to report negative PEs because if you're looking at PE, you obviously don't buy the stock based on the PE, but I think it's a valuable metric, so I like to mention it even if it's negative. Dividend and payout ratio 0, and don't expect that to change anytime soon. Probably not over the next 5 years, and probably not in the next 10 years either. Revenue $21 billion. It's up slightly under 100% from over $11 billion the previous year, with earnings of $1 billion, or rather a loss of $1 billion, which is down from $2 billion the previous year. So obviously things are kind of going into the right direction, and you can kind of see why as a growth stock this would be so amazingly interesting, because revenue of $21 billion and up 100%, which is just numbers that I don't think I've ever seen before. Total assets $30 billion, total liabilities $23 billion, so net tangible assets of $4.5 billion, which is up slightly from like 3.8-ish. Obviously, they do have a lot of assets in the bank that they don't need to worry about going broke at any point ever. The few companies I looked at before all had net tangible assets in the negatives. So obviously there's quite a bit of room there. So as to why I bought the stock, you can see that there is a transition going on from gas cars to electric cars, which is accelerating, and I don't think that there will be any gas cars sold in 2030. Now, a lot of old school car manufacturers are disagreeing with that, and they kind of don't want to see this change, and they kind of obviously don't want to just throw away all their R&D into gas engines and all their factory equipment and building of gas engines and all that. So they're kind of trying to stall this as long as possible, which is a problem because Tesla is obviously wanting to accelerate it as much as possible. So the case for Tesla as a car company is fairly obvious. Their revenue is growing at 100% year over year. If they wanted to be profitable right now, they could easily do that by just not developing any new products. And by that I mean, they're currently spending a lot of money on R&D for the Tesla Model Y, the Tesla Semi, the Tesla Roadster, the Tesla Pickup. And if they just stopped doing that and just sold cars and focused on making a profit, they would be hugely profitable today without a problem. Now, they're building a factory in China right now, which is expected in the first stage to have an output of about 150,000 cars per year, which kind of is about 50% of their current output overall. So that again would increase their revenue by 50%. The long-term plan for that factory is about 500,000 cars per year, which would more than double their current output. They're also building a new line in their Gigafactory 1 in Fremont. No, in their factory in Fremont, not in their Gigafactory, to have more Model 3s and possibly Model Ys come out of there soon. In the past, they've always been constrained by the battery production, so all the batteries they had went into cars, and any other batteries they might have had would have just increased their production of cars. And they're finally at a point where they have even just slightly more batteries than they want to put in cars right now. They have the demand for more cars, obviously, but they finally started delivering Powerwalls that were ordered like 2017, 2016. So they're kind of trying to slightly shift some of the batteries that they're producing towards Powerwalls and Power Packs and Mega Packs and whatnot. Which brings us to another point. Their battery business could also stand on its own, which means that large-scale battery projects are now being planned all over, and we could see Tesla replacing peaker plants. Generally, peaker plants run on natural gas, and they can easily be spun up to produce electricity when there's more demand than is currently being produced. Those could be replaced by batteries for savings of hundreds of millions of dollars. So again, the Tesla battery business could stand on its own, and they could build batteries for projects all over the world. And then we get to all the cars that they have in their pipeline. Obviously, the Model Y is entering a much bigger market segment than the Model 3 did, in the US anyway. The rest of the world kind of prefers sedans, or rather prefers sedans much more than the US does over crossovers and SUVs, because in Germany, no one really needs an SUV. There's just no need for that. So in the US, the market segment for SUVs is much bigger than the market segment for sedans. So that is going to increase demand a lot more. And then obviously the pickup is a huge segment in the US, and pretty much only the US, which is kind of weird. And then the Tesla Semi is going to enter a market segment that no other car manufacturer has entered yet. There's always been, in the US anyway, special companies building trucks rather than cars, instead of Europe, where Volvo, for example, builds big-ass trucks and Mercedes builds big trucks. And in the US, you kind of just have Peterbilt, you have Mack trucks and things like that. So there's a whole new market segment that not only Tesla, but no other legacy car manufacturer either has entered yet, which has huge potential for the future as well. And if they were to just build Tesla semis for themselves, they would have huge savings in gas and stuff. So even just handling the deliveries in America or in North America themselves and building trucks for their own deliveries would help them tremendously. But obviously selling them, especially with the advertised range and cost savings, would be incredible. And then we have Tesla Solar. Now, obviously Tesla Solar and the whole energy side of the business hasn't done much in terms of revenue, but that doesn't mean they won't in the future. Now, Tesla is trying to build solar panels on top of their Gigafactory and completely cover that thing, which is going to be like millions of kilowatt hours in energy every year. And they could honestly, if they keep going the way they have, start being a power plant. So with all the real estate they have for their superchargers, where They likely have permits to build solar panels on top of the superchargers with all the gigafactories that are building that could be completely covered. They could produce all the energy they need for their superchargers, and they might even have stuff left over to then sell to utility companies. So if you take all of that together, Tesla could, in a few years, be the biggest company on Earth. Now, whether or not that's going to happen is a whole different issue. And that's without considering the ride-sharing business that they're wanting to get into, which I think overall is not really that big of a market yet. But I think that could completely take it over, because obviously there's no way Lyft or Uber get there with self-driving taxis first. And if you don't have to pay a driver for a ride-sharing business, you can undercut the price by 50% and still make a huge profit. So that's my bullish thesis on Tesla, which is going to play out over the next few years. And even if they just stick to what they're currently producing, which means cars, batteries, solar, then they could already be the biggest car manufacturer in the US and possibly the world within the next 5-ish years. If you look at the revenue growth, if you look at what they're planning to do with the Gigafactory in China, Gigafactory in Europe, they could expand pretty much infinitely and kind of take over the whole car market, because there is no other manufacturer even close to the same technology. If you look at the Porsche Taycan that just came out, which cannot beat the Model S currently, which is ridiculous because they've been working on that for many years and they wanted to build a good car. They wanted to build a car that could beat Tesla, and they still haven't managed to do that. It's twice the price as a Model S. So they can't beat Tesla with a car that costs twice as much and probably still won't make them a profit. Now, if you look at the Nissan Leaf, for example, as one of the big competitors in the car market, they can't do batteries. And so you can buy a Nissan Leaf that's like 4 years old for a third of the price of a new Nissan Leaf, which is just ridiculous. You cannot do that with a Tesla. You still have to pay $40,000 for a Model S that was built in 2013. And then you have Audi with the e-tron right now, which has a ridiculously lower efficiency. And so with basically the same battery pack as a Model 3, they get like 2/3 of the miles. So if you combine all of that and you just look at the car company that you think Tesla is, there is no other company that can compete with them. There's no other company that can compete with Tesla from 7 years ago. So the Taycan finally beat most of the metrics of the 2012 Model S. They can't beat the current one, but they can beat Tesla 7 years ago. So if you think that Tesla with a 7-year head start is not going to be one of the biggest car manufacturers in the world, I think you're kind of deluding yourself. So if you put all of that together, and especially combined with the brand recognition they have, the technology advantage they have, besides all the battery specs and the motor specs, they have an infotainment system, they have all the controls on the touchscreen. Their technology overall inside the car is so much ahead of the competition that it's just ridiculous that other car manufacturers haven't even been able to just copy it and put it into their cars. So with all of that combined, Tesla as a car manufacturer is going to be the biggest car manufacturer in the world in 5-ish years. And then you have all the other things that they're doing on the side. So I think that Tesla is a good buy at $245. Tesla is a good buy at $300, and Tesla was a good buy when I bought my first share at $374. I think Tesla would still be a good buy at about $1,000 if you're wanting to hold it for 5 years. Because at that point, they're probably making too much money to know what to do with. So at that point, you're probably going to see either a humongous increase in share price or a humongous dividend, because with a gross margin that they're probably keeping at about 20%, when they're delivering 2 million, 3 million, 5 million cars per year, they're going to have too much money to quickly expand their gigafactories to handle the demand. So at that point, you're going to see a lot of return on that investment. So if you agree with all of what I said just about the car side of their business, I think it's clear that Tesla is a good buy from here up to at least $500 without question. What happens after that, what happens next year, I don't know. The stock is very volatile. It could go down. I don't see it going down. There's less than 3 weeks left, basically. In 3 weeks, they're going to give preliminary numbers for deliveries in Q3. And from that point on, I think the stock is going to go up significantly. So let's see what happens. I'm going to buy more shares whenever I can. I think that this is going to be my best investment so far. I don't see any way that the stock could go down long term. There's just no reason for it to ever do that. That's it for me today. I'm sorry for the long video and rant. If you like this video and you haven't already, make sure to subscribe. I'm coming out with more videos every day before market open. I hope you have a successful day.